Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 knockdown rule on Triller is back in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Mario Magsayo Lopez. Mabuhay! New champion from the Philippines.
About time. Yeah. Quick shout out, smoking Tim Frazier, Buffalo Knuckles, Tino
on the edit. We've got a lot to talk about this week. Let's go back Saturday night on Showtime from luxurious Atlantic City, New Jersey, from the Borgata. We have a new WBC featherweight champion of the world, Mark Magsayo, with a majority 12-round decision over long-reigning champion Gary Russell. Your scores: 114-114, overruled by 2 judges who had it 115-113. Here's my view of it. Russell boxed well as a handicap fighter. But you know what, Mario? You don't judge on a curve.
You don't. That was a big night of fighting in general. I was down at the Pond in Anaheim for UFC 270, which I know we'll get into a little bit later, so I had to catch up on Gary Russell and Magsayo later on. I was very happy on a personal note because Freddie Roach and Wildcard been going there for a long time, so obviously was pulling for him. But I think the bigger theme here is, look, kids, you can't take 2 years off from the sport and jump in and expect to just pick right up where you left off, no matter how talented you are. And I do think Russell is talented. And for a guy who was injured, and I know there's some discrepancy. Was he injured going into the sport? Pardon me, going into the fight, or did he aggravate an injury that he thought had subsided, and Magsayo sort of brought it out of him, if you will? Regardless, once you step in there, if you chose to get into that fight,
the result is the result.
The result is the result, and you have to be prepared to live with the consequences, okay? I don't want to hear any excuses or anything afterwards, because if you chose to get in there, then the result is the result, exactly like you just said. Be that as it may, I thought he boxed pretty well, even though it was punches thrown few and far between. He made him miss a lot, yes, and he was countering nicely at times, yes, but it was too little, too late. And Magsayo, who started off aggressive, effective, and I thought that was a perfect game plan. I know Freddie likes his fighters very offensive-minded. He went and he let his hands go. Sort of started to taper off. I don't know if it was a result because Russell sort of figured him out a little bit, but wasn't able to necessarily do the things he wanted to in there, being somewhat physically impaired. Didn't matter to Magsayo. He still stayed on his game plan. Yeah, again, like I said, he was maybe missing a little bit, but did land the cleaner, harder punches in there. Looked like the bigger guy. Did enough to win. I didn't think there was any controversy. The only thing that was controversial, I thought, were the scorecards, even though the right man won. A little closer than I thought. 8-4. I had it maybe 7-5.
Agreed.
115 through the draw. Come on, that's a little shady right there. So, ironically, a valiant effort on both parts because Russell, considering his circumstances, but again, not enough to have his hand raised. And I do think the lack of inactivity had something to do with that. And I know a lot of people were sort of celebrating with the belt not being held hostage anymore, and we can finally see some fights. And Magsayo, look, he's a fun, exciting guy. Not necessarily like the second coming of Pacquiao, but a fun, exciting guy. I think makes for some fun potential matchups. And I think the featherweight division is very much alive now.
What's interesting, a couple people have pointed this out. When Gary Russell had his injury exacerbated in the 3rd or 4th round when it was punched or pushed.
So it was exacerbated,
yeah,
right?
You could tell by his reaction.
Sure.
Okay, and this is Gary Russell, not Denzel Washington. I do think there was an injury. It was certainly a lot of pain, at least for that moment. But once he became very defensive on his back foot, it actually hurt Magsayo. Because Magsayo was counting on Gary Russell to run into punches. And once Magsayo had to go completely front foot, it may have been something they didn't completely work on in camp.
That's a good point. At the same time, he couldn't throw that jab, and I know he couldn't throw that right hook anymore too. But you're right, it does change it up, and you do have to adjust accordingly.
But the problem with Gary Russell, in my view, is it's an old theory of hit and not be hit. He was doing the not hit very well. The hitting part, he almost threw a no-hitter. This was Nolan Ryan. According to CompuBox, he landed less than 70 punches in a 12-round fight. I don't care if you're Willie Pep or Prime Pernell Whitaker. It is almost impossible to win a fight of that nature.
Especially in boxing.
Right. And you take a look at Russell's road as a champion. Showtime pointed out this is a long-reigning champion, a belt holder since 2015.
Yeah, but how many fights then during that time? Kim, you can be a long-reigning champion when you're inactive. What does it matter?
As Jimmy Johnson once said, read the fine print. in 6 years as a champion, he only had 5 title defenses. Now, there were some decent fighters like Kiko Martinez, King Tug, and obviously Joseph Diaz. But there's a theory that I have, and I talked to a few trainers today about this. I said, do you think that injury is a part of ring rust, that when your body is not used to the contact, there's no real competitional use, if that's a term? Do you think that could upend a body symmetry and cause? And they said yes. Go back to when Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler in 1987. His first sparring session with a hard-hitting guy out of Houston, Texas by the name of Quincy Taylor. Ended up winning a belt. Ray Leonard actually said, I had to relearn how to get hit. My face was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? And so take a look at other athletes that play 82 games in a year in baseball, 162. Mario, when they go on the disabled list or they're injured, and they actually do this a lot more than boxers per year, if they miss 1 or 2 weeks, what do they always say about their first game back? I'm a little rusty. Got to get my timing back. You're telling me boxers that you literally take 9 to 12 months in between fights, and in Gary Russell's case, about 22 months, 24 months, you're saying it didn't make a difference? Because think about your connective tissue, the conditioning of the body, it matters.
Boxing is all timing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I think he got away with his natural athletic ability for a long time. But sooner or later, that's going to catch up with you. And I think it caught up with him on Saturday night.
Here's the other variable.
And
he's 33.
I was just saying, and he's getting older, Kim. So you have that. And 33 is much different than 23. Your body's not going to allow you to do as many things physically that you maybe were once able to do. And when you're fighting at this elite level, you start shaving off those little fibers in your whole being.
Yeah.
That's going to matter. And Magsayo, not to take anything away, but was able to take advantage of that. So
at the end of the day, I said to myself, is Gary Russell, in my view, a better fighter? Yes, but sometimes, as I wrote in Snack.com, as Gary Russell died on the vine, circumstances beat a fighter more than the opponent.
And he put himself in these certain circumstances. So the question becomes, do you think now we'll see an about face and a much more active Russell, considering?
You mean the one that's injured?
Well,
that's
right.
the problem. He's already on the 8-month disabled list.
Yeah, see.
An injury.
How serious was the injury? Do we know?
Well, look, if he could, you're right, and I want to give Gary Russell some credit. He couldn't shoot out a hard jab. There was no right hook, which is very lethal for him. I've seen him knock guys cold with that. Think about, there might be a surgery. You have to go through the rehabilitation process. Also, with a guy like Gary Russell, who's turned down $1 million fight offers for Josh Warrington, now that he's not a champion, his value is diminished. What if he says to Al Heyman, all right, Al, I want 3 fights. Get me back going. Let's go 10 rounds, and I want to eventually get the rematch. And Al says, great, or PBC. Then they say, all right, we're going to start you out about $250,000 per fight. He might go, excuse me? It's a new world without the belt.
Well, he's got to be realistic and practical with himself. That's the thing. So, look, at the end of the day, I think the lesson learned here is just in life, too. No matter how much you think you yourself are worth or how talented you yourself think you are, you got to put in their work. There are no shortcuts. You have to stay busy.
Sometimes that work is the investment.
You have
to
continue to apply your trade. Exactly.
And very simple about a blade in boxing. You're either sharpening it or it's getting dull. There's really no in between. So congratulations to Mark Magsayo, the latest champion of Freddie Roach and
Shout
Wildcard.
out to him.
Right, and I want to give a shout out to one referee, Mary Glover. Ciryl Matias and Petros Ananyan were going hammer and tong for 8-9 rounds. But at the end of the 9th round, when Ananyan hit the floor, Mary Glover and the ringside physician, another lady working for the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, they basically said, no. You're good. And Mario, can I say something? As someone that was there when Ciryl Matias had that fateful night against Maxim Dadashov.
We both, unfortunately, I've seen a few guys die in the ring.
That looked awfully familiar.
Yeah.
Remember, Maxim Dadashov got stopped in the 11th and eventually lost his life. As someone who had to cover that up close from ringside and then go to the hospital to see him in that state, it looked eerily familiar. What was alarming to me is that Ananyan's corner, it looked to me like they were going to trot him out there for the 10th.
Yeah.
Matias is the worst type of guy to fight in this sense. He hits you hard and often, but not necessarily hard enough to get you out with one shot.
Well, and that's, you're right. And because of the accumulation, that's what can do the most damage sometimes. And it's hard to know when to pull the plug.
Right. And a fighter, it's the catch-22. Do you want to go on? I believe that the fighter at that point doesn't want to look like a coward. To me, there should be an honorable surrender, but again, thumbs up to Mary Glover making the right move.
Yep.
Moving on to news and notes here. It was announced by Top Rank last week, March 19th at the famed Madison Square Garden. They're going to be doing a show on ESPN. They're calling it The Night of Young Guns. Edgar Berlanga takes on Steve Rolls, who once fought Golovkin in that same building. And it'll also feature Xander Zayas and Keyshawn Davis. Mario, I love the concept of this card. We're going to let the younger guys take center stage.
Wepa, a couple Puerto Rican stars.
I think
being
Berlanga's
highlighted
on the clock now. That last performance was alarming to me against Coceres.
Well, listen, it's the kind of performance that young fighters like him need in their development, I think, that maybe the hype starts to precede them. They're getting a little, and not to say that he was letting it get to his head or anything, but a lot of people were really kind of exalting him and putting him in the same caliber, potentially to fight a Canelo and this and that. No, but you were hearing that, right? So that sort of fight kind of gives you a reality check and maybe makes you want to work harder, and you're a better fighter at the end of the day for it.
That had to be a humbling experience. But you talk about the social media. Look, when you take this many posts and you're hanging out with Fat Joe and other celebrities, it feels a little Ryan Garcia-ish. And at that point, you do make yourself a target. Now, also on this card is Xander Zayas, who I believe one day his ceiling is so high. When Top Rank does their traditional Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend shows that were once held by, I think, Trinidad and obviously Miguel Cotto, this kid has the look. Still only 18, 19 years old. Is still very much in the beginning. And I'll say this again. Keyshawn Davis, if he was stock, he'd be Microsoft in 1998. I think he's that good. He's the best young Olympian that we've had in years. He is very, very special. To me, he was the 5-star blue chip special out of this last amateur class. I can't wait to see him in 2021.
I love these
and
sort
beyond.
of development programs that highlights the stars and that they know how to build them.
Mario, what I don't like about some of these cards is, and every company has prospects, and you know the way that it is now. Before you get the main card on the network, they stream them. Well, guys like, sometimes I'm there at 3:30. Sometimes you're busy. You don't get there till about 6 or 7. I have to tell you how good a kid looked. There comes a point in time when you're on a card as a bright young fighter. The reality is only the janitor and the commission and the matchmakers watching you, nobody else. On this particular night, March 19th, eyes are going to be upon you. So there's a little bit of pressure on these kids. I like that.
Good.
Mario, I'm getting a little fed up with the heavyweight division. You're hearing all these reports that Anthony Joshua may or may not step aside, may get his way out of the Usyk rematch. Tyson Fury and Dillian White, they can't come to an agreement with the WBC purse bid and the purse split.
It is frustrating because there's so many
Can we get
guys
some fights?
that you can mix and match.
Can we get some fights, though?
Exactly. And then you have Tyson Fury calling out Francis Ngannou.
Well, okay, we'll get to that later because
my
that after what I saw Saturday, what you saw, and you'll talk about it later, I'm like, Tyson, you even go there, you're losing a lot of credibility. But here's the issue that I have. Before you know it, it's going to be March, pretty much into late January, right? So I don't know what's going on here, but Anthony Joshua and Usyk, I believe, fought in late September. All right, we've already turned the calendar. Fury and Wilder, great fight. You were there. That happened October 9th. Mario, back in the olden days, when Muhammad Ali, he used to go 15 rounds with Joe Frazier at Thriller in Manila. The next year, he fought 4 times. My view is this is the game's glamour division, right? It really means something. Tyson Fury is a great personality. He's made 1 real title defense in over 2 reigns as the heavyweight champion. Anthony Joshua is rarely seen anymore. This is one of the problems I think where boxing has an issue in terms of building its brand, that if your glamour division with some of your biggest names goes out there 9-10 months and everything is just like this protracted negotiation. Mario, I get it. Boxing is a business. But do we have a right to ask, can we get a little bit of sport once in a while?
I think one of the issues is that where's the incentive? Fury made $30 million in this last
Good
fight.
for him.
Great for him.
Great for him.
You make $30 million, you're not too anxious to get up at 4 in the morning and start running. You're not too anxious to step in the gym and start getting punched in the face again. And start. I mean, that's just the reality, as opposed to being a young, hungry guy who's fighting to survive. You start making obscene money like that.
Yeah.
He might have made a little more, too, after the pay-per-view. It's hard to get motivated. So I'm not saying you're looking for excuses to get out, but you want sort of a perfect scenario, great circumstances to get you going because you don't have the financial incentive.
Agree.
Because you're getting very comfortable.
Completely agree. But let me ask you something. Do you think Bill Gates wakes up and says, I got enough money. I'm good.
I'm not saying I'm agreeing with him.
I mean-
I'm saying I think that's as opposed to, and I know we're going to get to it later, with the UFC where Francis Ngannou only made $600,000 as the heavyweight
listed
champion.
commission purse. It's a little bit different. But okay, let me ask you this
Okay,
then.
but here's my thing. I'm not saying they should start docking the salaries. I think fighters, out of all athletes in any sport, deserve their money and then some. They literally are putting their lives on the line for our entertainment.
No doubt.
Absolutely. However, with that said, there has to be some sort of rule or something implemented where if you don't defend by a certain amount of time, then we're going to strip you. I honestly would love something like that because at this point, then you're just coming up with colorful excuses. Do you disagree?
I don't disagree, but the problem is a lot of these sanctioning bodies start becoming co-conspirators in the problem.
Well, then
Look, I've said about sanctioning bodies for years. They're a necessary evil. They can be part of the problem or the solution, and oftentimes they kind of veer off in the wrong way. But I have a question. Isn't that their old saying? This is the business you chose,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And the other thing is, I want to ask you this: if you were
On both sides, by the way, boxing and UFC.
right? If you're Anthony Joshua, and if it was $15 million to step aside, and eventually you would get the winner of Fury against Usyk, would you do it?
Kim, you literally just asked me would I take $15 million to do nothing.
Okay.
No, to do nothing. Who wouldn't take $15 million to do nothing?
Right. Okay, but as a fan though, would you rather see Fury or Usyk next in 5 months,
As opposed to?
as opposed to Fury fighting Dillian White and in the rematch between Joshua and Usyk? So those are the two scenarios. Do you want to see the WBC mandatory be fulfilled by Fury, Joshua Usyk 2, or do you want to skip all of that and go right to Usyk against Fury for the undisputed title?
I would skip all of it and go Usyk right to Fury.
Okay. I'll be honest.
Wouldn't you?
You know what? And I don't blame Anthony Joshua that if you're saying, wait a minute, I get $15 million not to face the guy that beat me, but eventually
Not to do anything, not to leave my house.
And I am promised a shot at the winner of the undisputed fight.
So you're looking at $30 million no matter what.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Minimum.
Right.
$30 million no matter what?
Right.
Well, he'd be a fool to not do that.
Yeah, so call off the GoFundMe campaign for Anthony Joshua. All right, we come back. We go to Ask Mario and Final Flurries on the 3 Knockdown Rule on Triller. And we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule on Triller. We go to the Ask Mario segment of this fine program. Here's one from MC. Given the current state of the featherweight division, is it somewhat safe to say that Vaquero, Emmanuel Navarrete, is the favorite to become undisputed should he ever fight Magsayo, Leo Santa Cruz, Warrington / Martinez?
Yeah, who's the other long-limbed kid that
Well, the Ray Vargas is number 1 in the BC.
Right,
he
Ray
is
Vargas.
difficult.
Yes,
oh,
that's
my
what
God.
I was thinking. That's what I was. Forgive me for not remembering that off the top. I like Ray Vargas too, but
Not to watch. Oh, my God. He is the very definition of effectiveness over entertaining.
But he's a tough out for all those. So yeah, I would say Navarrete and Ray Vargas.
When I'm watching that fight, and I've always been a big fan of Gary Russell, but I said to myself halfway through the fight, with or without the injury, his best boxing's in the rearview mirror. One thing about Navarrete, he has the best sense of who he is and what he is and sticking by his identity.
He's definitely most in his prime and the most dangerous right now.
And he throws 1,000, 1,200 punches.
Yep.
Could you imagine that guy facing a one-arm guy?
Oh yeah.
I mean, just think about that. So the other guys are kind of limited. One thing about Navarrete, and me and Tim Bradley talk about it a lot. Tim really likes those stylish, technical guys. He's a fan because he said, Steve, he does a lot of things wrong, and it's all right for him.
Exactly.
For
It's a
him.
style that complements himself. How do you like the fight between him and Ray Vargas?
Any fight with Ray Vargas is one that I'm going to go to the bathroom and get a drink. I think he's hard to watch. He's the modern-day Miguel Vasquez.
Yeah, but that guy makes it like he's a puzzle that's hard to figure out. I don't care who you
No,
are.
there's no doubt about it. He's one of these guys that you kind of look at and you're like, oh, God. Anytime he's on a bout sheet, I always say, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom in that fight. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of his.
Yeah, I see. I kind of like his difficult.
Next time we're watching a fight together when Ray Vargas, I am not letting you leave your sofa.
Well, if somebody,
tell you that.
but if he fights someone like a Navarrete, someone action-packed, then I'm interested to see.
Oh,
how
long
that
limbs are
pans out.
flying everywhere on that
That's what
one.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Here's a question from Chad Giroux. What is the most important criteria for judging a round? Effective shots landed trumps all, right? Yes.
To me,
Yes.
To me, the punches that do the most damage, which I guess in theory is the most effective, right? But the one who I always ask myself, who would I rather be at the end of that round?
Very simple.
And that's to me who I think would run.
I
who
don't
wins.
believe, people talk about the 4 criteria of judging a round: ring generalship, defense, punching, and effective aggression, right? I really think 80% of it is who's landing the most punches, who's doing the most damage. And that's the interesting thing. So if people are saying, well, Gary Russell outboxed him, he might have been, but here's the problem. You can outbox a guy, but if you're only landing 2 punches and you're making me miss a lot, but I'm landing 10, this is not about a batting average. The guy landing more punches consistently, backing a guy up, and I'm still hurting you a little bit more even though I'm missing a lot, I believe that guy wins the round.
I agree.
That's my view of it. The masterclass boxer actually lands punches in between all the ducking, dodging, and slipping.
That's why a lot of people that were at the fight for Chavez Taylor 1 had it even going into the 12th.
Right, because they could feel the punches.
They could feel the punches.
And never mind
Exactly.
the disgustingly bad decision by Richard Steele to stop that fight.
No. Watch Legendary Lights again.
Here's one from Hydro. Is the expiration date for Crawford versus Spence this year? Mario, can I give you a statistic? I'm going to give you some facts here.
Okay.
I'm good at this. I'm the facts machine. By the end of September, Terrence Crawford will be 34, 35. Spence will be about 32. Put this into perspective. When Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns fought their first time in 1981, they were basically 23 and 25.
Wow.
What an indictment, huh?
Isn't that wild when you think about it? No, long gone are the fighters who fought 5-6 times a year.
Or early.
And faced themselves. And you know what? I think the 90s were probably the last great decade when you had the De La Hoyas, the Trinidads, and those guys fighting as often as they did. And the level of meaningful fights and competition. To answer his question, this is the last year that I think it will get as much buzz as it does. You look, Mayweather-Pacquiao was over-marinated, and then the product itself when we got
they were icons, though. That's
correct,
the problem.
Correct. No, correct. So my comparison was this is them without the icon status, and I think if you wait any longer, it's going to lose a lot of its luster.
I believe they have to fight as welterweight champions. I believe it has to be for undisputed at 147. Because if they fight in 2 years at 54, I'm going to be like,
No, exactly.
Here's the other thing about Ray Leonard. He didn't have a lot of fights because obviously he had the eye injury, a lot of personal setbacks, took years off at a time. By the time he fought, Ray Leonard, and Breadman Edwards told me he loves Ray Leonard. That's his all-time favorite fighter. He's a real young historian, great young trainer. Since they say what they want about Ray Leonard's career, by the time he got to Leonard or Hearns, Leonard already had around 30 fights, and he had already faced Duran twice, and he had faced Wilfredo Benitez. It's a little different, huh?
No, Ray Leonard to me.
I mean, think about Trinidad against De La Hoya. Trinidad, by the time he fought De La Hoya in 1999, you know he had like 14, 15 title defenses at 47.
And he beat like 4 Olympic gold medalists, remember?
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was just, well, that was afterwards when he beat Vargas.
Sure.
And then De La Hoya was obviously a superstar. And guess what? I believe, if I read this correctly from the Ring Magazine story, De La Hoya and Trinidad, when they fought in 1999, I believe were both 26.
Yep. Undefeated in the prime fight of the millennium. I was there in Mandalay Bay. Never forget it. Still thought he won that fight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Did you?
I thought Trinidad, I thought it was close. I actually thought Trinidad snuck it. I do.
I disagree with you, and I think you're wrong. I really do.
Thanks for your opinion there.
No, I really do. I had it 7 rounds to 5. I had it 7 rounds
close,
to
though.
5.
Still pretty close.
I didn't say it wasn't close.
Yeah. But see,
he didn't.
one thing I push back on when people say, he was winning after 10 rounds. Right, he wasn't 9-1. That's I've always thought it was maybe like 6-4.
No.
I always thought it was. I thought
he was giving him a boxing lesson early on, bro. And just because he was being aggressive or coming forward, he wasn't landing.
But think about that. I don't think we appreciate.
He bloodied him up too.
He did.
Remember? He bloodied him up.
But think about this though. Trinidad and De La Hoya were promoted by Don King
and Bob
Arum, who were Tom and Jerry.
That's
Spy versus Spy, and they made it happen.
That's why they didn't do the rematch, though. Because they hated doing it again, because that was a big fight.
I still remember Bob Arum was steamed at the press, and Don King, I have this on tape. Lonesome Bob and Running Coyote. Lights are out in Aaronville. Viva Puerto Rico. And Bob had Bill Kaplan shut off Don's bike in the middle of the press conference. One of those, Viva Puerto Rico. Okay, here's one from Ignacio Ortiz. Oh, boy. Buzzkill Central. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but don't kill the messenger.
What?
How disappointed with the reports that Gallo versus Chocolatito is postponed, and who would you guys like Subriel Matias to fight after his next performance? Okay, a lot of reports. I spoke to someone at Matchroom who could not confirm or deny that Estrada Chocolatito 5 is still on for March 5th in San Diego. But, Mario, if you read between the ginseng tea leaves, when they don't confirm that a fight is still on, that leads me to believe it's off. And that's the second time this fight has been struck by COVID. Here's my question. Roman Gonzalez is here in California now. Works out in Coachella. Visited him in camp. Seems like he's just seen him on social media. Is it time for him to get a fight? Fight somebody to stay busy? Because, look, I get it.
He's
but
not a kid. He's not a kid. I know. Look, it's one of those things. You roll the dice. You do another fight. And
you never know what could happen.
You never know what could happen. So why not hedge your bets? This late in his career, I get it. Him, Golovkin, I get it.
This is a tough one.
No, I get it. This late, if they're young, developing, like Garcia, Haney, those young guys.
Get busy.
They get busy. They don't have an excuse. Golovkin, Chocolatito, different circumstance. I give him a pass.
It's like that old car. You only take him out on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday.
You know what? That's a very good analogy.
It's the, what do they call
that
it? The
analogy
low rider?
is way better than your Don King impression.
The low rider on Whittier Boulevard, Here's the issue. Joshua Franco is a pretty good fighter. His people are saying, hey, I'd love to see Joshua Franco, young, hungry lion, 2 big wins over Maloney last year. I know Robert Garcia in his camp and Slick Rick Meridian. They're saying, ring my bell. They want to make that fight happen. As for Subriel Matias, a dream fight I know will never happen. And I actually want to make a comment here. Speaking of inactivity. Mario, you were there last April when Regis Prograis knocked out Ivan Redkach in that phantom knockout that was a knockout. That
Triller.
they tried to,
Sure.
He hasn't fought since.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
That's in April.
He was one of my favorite young fighters in the junior welterweight division. And I didn't know
what's going on.
I didn't know COVID. He got injured. I didn't know what the case was. Contract disputes. But that's another guy that should be nice kid too.
Yes, solid guy.
Yeah,
solid guy.
Should be a lot busier.
But I would love to see Subriel Matias and Regis. But here's the problem with Regis. Regis, don't die on the vine. You only get your youth once. It's like the sands of time. When you turn it over, you can never really turn it back.
You're exactly right.
Everyone has an expiration date as a fighter. Okay, moving on to final flurries. Mario, was the NFL playoffs like one of those old Don King championship undercards, revenge the rematches? Every game was dramatic. What a weekend of football.
Well, the road teams almost won. The Bills should have. That, I think, stole the weekend. And did you find it incredibly ironic how Josh Allen and Justin Herbert sort of suffered the same fate?
Yeah.
Both made huge plays for their teams, thought they had it in the bag. Defense let them down. However, more so with the Bills because with the 13 seconds, and we talked about
it.
Squib. That squib kick.
You got
my cousin was stupid on that.
You got to play the squib game.
Come on. You kick that squib kick. You take at least 4 or 5 seconds off the clock on 13. Now you're talking about 9 seconds. You only got time for one play to get in field goal range. Okay? That greatly diminishes the odds, but that was just so foolish, man. And then leaving Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. How fast is that?
Well, here's the thing. You got to get a jam on them.
Of course.
At least, redirect. But the squib kick is designed.
It was designed for that.
It's designed for when it's under 15 seconds, and unless you have a Stanford Cal band play, that's kind of the way you do it. I think a lot of teams use the squib too early because you can give up field position. But even Tony Romo was like, ooh, I disagree with this. Because it gives them a chance to not burn off any clock on a play.
Right.
And sometimes
Belichick would have called the squib kick.
Yes, and sometimes time is more important than actual yardage.
Of course.
And I hate to say it, as a big Aaron Rodgers fan, he's not the guy. Too many home losses in the playoffs.
You know what my theory is on that? This may sound silly. Because first of all, how can he be not, quote, the guy? My guy just is about to win his next MVP. He's out here putting up ridiculous stats, and you always look at that guy and you're like, oh my God, look at that throw. And he's out there doing it with not necessarily an all-star cast, right? As it gets colder, I think as he gets colder, he doesn't deal well with. He's a California kid, but as he gets colder, he just does not hold the ball the same, bro. Well, listen, the one Super Bowl he won, they were on the road the whole time. They didn't play in Green Bay, and then they played the Super Bowl in Dallas because I was at that game. They played Pittsburgh, and he balled out that whole season. Had they played on the road, outside of those cold weather. I know it's silly as that sounds, but I honestly think that's a big factor.
You know, but if you look at his record in cold weather,
Isn't that
it's
crazy?
actually pretty good, though. They've kept stats. He's actually. I just think the problem is
No, not during the
Devontae Adams.
postseason. Not during the postseason. That's when it gets really cold.
Devontae Adams
January
is an
gets really
excellent
cold.
all-pro, top-shelf receiver. They have no second threat. They have no second threat, and it began to catch. And plus, they couldn't block Bosa. And when their offensive line was a little bit banged up,
Yeah, good thing he got cleared. I didn't get to see the whole game, to be honest with you, or even much of it. Did Garoppolo, I'm hearing, didn't play well, but in spite they still won?
he kept trying to give that game to Green
Really?
Bay, and Green Bay kept giving it right back.
So they won in spite of him.
In many respects, yes. I'm short of winning a Super Bowl. I don't think he comes back. I really. I think people are already saying Trey Lance is starting.
Does he have enough to beat the Rams? you think?
Yes, they've already beaten him twice.
They beat him twice this year?
Yes, they did.
Wow.
Yes.
In LA?
And-
Oh, wow. Did they just match up well
And
with them?
Shanahan, he owns McVay.
Really?
It's the most ironic
What's
thing.
the line right now?
I believe the Rams are favored, but I'm just telling you right now, the Niners are not afraid of the Rams. They're not.
Well, dude, after that collapse, I mean, Stafford finally made us out. Well, Cooper Kupp came up
What a
clutch with those
stud.
guys.
What a stud.
Yes, he is a stud. But man, really? Well, Aaron Donald, I just love me some Aaron Donald. But
Best pure football player in the
yes,
league last
no.
7 years.
But wow, they beat him twice already. So then they're due then.
Yes.
To lose.
'Cause it's very difficult to beat a team 3
Yeah,
times.
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. But we'll see. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pulling for San Francisco and Cincinnati.
Okay.
How great would that Super Bowl be if that ever happened?
Mario, Saturday night, you were at UFC 270. It seemed to me the
Wait,
heavyweight.
real quick. You give the Bengals a shot at all?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, at home. Look, I think they're already
They
ahead of
beat the
schedule.
Chiefs one time
They
earlier.
did, though. But remember,
They
that
did.
was in
That's
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Now
Okay.
they're coming to Arrowhead. It's a little bit different.
So no shot.
Yeah, Mario, you were at UFC 270. I was watching it on another screen.
Good for you.
Yeah, I did. My buddy Hugo had the 2 screens going. Am I wrong? The little guys were a lot more excited than Francis Ngannou.
Best fight of the weekend. Never have I seen so much raza at UFC
Órale,
either.
órale.
And by the way, you get there, and I got there early to have some drinks with friends around 6-ish, right? Packed. Already
Yep.
packed and sold out. And it's a party. Brandon Moreno from Tijuana and Figueiredo from Brazil, who my guys just put together. He looks like he's like a drugstore like every day.
Yeah.
So, and then Moreno looks like he barely does a push-up. Man, what a great, great fight. Very, very close. Tyson and Mike Tyson happened to be sitting right. Yeah. Dwayne Wade, Mike Tyson had like a fun row right there. He actually thought Moreno did enough to win. I actually think he did too. I had it pretty even going in. They judge MMA different than they do. It's not like knockdowns or as much
There's
as
no 10-8
or
rounds.
Well, technically they can kind of,
But they don't really, though.
but not really, because you can get caught. But then once you do get taken down, you can put your other opponent in a more vulnerable submission, right? So that was an exciting fight. 2 world-class elite athletes. Very, very close. I thought Moreno did enough, honestly, but I don't have a problem with Figueiredo. Now they're talking about a 4th fight in Mexico.
Think about that. Those guys are on their 3rd fight, going on their 4th. We
fight.
can't get Crawford Spence one time.
Exactly.
Think about that.
Well, that's what happens when you're able to monopolize the sport. You want this fight or not. Now, talk about the heavyweight fight. Man,
What a
Francis
snoozer.
Ngannou.
What a
Well, no,
snoozer.
I actually appreciated it, but I'll tell you why. First of all, Francis Ngannou, who's coming in at 6'4", 260. My guy looks like a physical specimen, like just built in a lab. This dude is perfectly proportioned. It's just crazy. Gane, by the way, he's coming in, same thing, 6'4", 247. He's only like 10, 13 pounds less, right? He was piecing him up, so athletic, moves like a middleweight in there. And Ngannou did something that really impressed me. He realized his striking wasn't up to par, and he couldn't, and we'll get back to the Fury thing later. So he made an adjustment. He started to grapple. Dude, this dude wants to take you down. You are not stopping him. So he continued to wrestle on him. His jiu-jitsu wasn't too bad.
It was passable.
It was passable. Got himself out of a heel hook, which I thought that was going to be over. Was able to do a sweep. You were not escaping that. So he wrestled very effective the last 3 rounds and ended up winning. I was very impressed that he was able to adjust his game plan. And for such a big guy, he kept up his cardio with a real talented guy in Gane. So I was like, wow, it wasn't the
because after
Mike Tyson-esque bomb throwing we thought we were going to see, but Gane was able to keep him out.
Had to be workmanlike. Had to be workmanlike.
Yes. And so the way he was able to adjust was very, very impressive. But that was a fun night.
I give him credit because after 2 rounds, I'm watching going, I think the wrong guy's winning here. That's what it looked like. And then 3, 4, and 5, I think, you know what? He edged it each round. I thought it was close. I thought the right guy won.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I like both of the guys as fighters and as people. Gentlemen, class act. However, in Ngannou, I know all these MMA guys calling out fighters for these big paydays. Forget Tyson Fury. I don't know if any top 20 heavyweight
20
will
being generous.
Will have more than 3 or 4 rounds to take him out.
You're being generous.
Really? You say what? Top what?
50.
Really?
Yes.
Top 50 heavyweights take him out?
Yes.
Andrew Ruiz is knocking his ass out.
Oh my goodness. You must not. You don't like him as much as you said.
I love what you're talking.
That'd be if it was a pure boxing match.
Because you look at one guy, he looks like he's literally a physical specimen, and the other guy looks like he's just crunching tortas all day. You know what I mean?
Andy Ruiz would be one of the worst matchups. I'll tell you why. Hand speed.
Of course.
He wouldn't even see the punches coming.
Yep.
I mean, look, a young Jared Anderson, who I'm very high on, that would be a mismatch. When I'm watching this fight,
this guy, let me tell you, Kim, he is freakishly strong too. Doesn't matter in punches when grappling, it does, but freakishly strong. So he would have to connect some sort of wilder type punch for it to be effective. But just that he's really one of the most impressive physical specimens.
Like that guy that's pulling off the upsets on the PBC card, really fun guy, Johnny Rice. Johnny Rice would piece up Ngannou. Easy, tall, lean guy who knows how to like do the combat face to face.
Yeah,
I'm watching this fight going, all right, Tyson, you've had your fun trolling. If you do this fight, there's no credibility.
See, I have no problem with it. I'm going to tell you why. Much like how Muhammad Ali went to go fight these Japanese. Remember when he did that?
Antonio
Inoki, exactly.
Lyle Alzado.
Exactly. Look, in Tyson Fury, and he's got the personality for it too. Tyson Fury.
You know what the difference is, though? Ali fought a lot more real fights. This guy doesn't do enough real fights, in my view.
I agree with that statement. However, I think outside of the Usyk and Joshua fights, that's probably his biggest payday. If he were to fight an Ngannou, I think it would be like a McGregor Mayweather type.
You know
fight.
what would make it interesting?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, here's what.
Hold on a second. Don't you agree with that statement?
I don't disagree, but you know how you make it interesting to me? You have to tell Tyson Fury. You have to tie one arm behind your back, either the left. No, make it a handicap match. Why not?
So stupid.
I'm being
serious.
serious.
The guy he's fighting, the fucking guy's a monster.
Tyson Fury, if you literally tied his right arm behind his back.
Tyson Fury's built like a bag of milk too. It would be just a great visual.
You really think Ngannou could get away from the jab?
No, I say he gets knocked out inside of 3 rounds. What are you talking about?
Even with one arm.
Oh, come on, dude. One arm. Now you're being stupid. Look. Here's the thing. I would have no problem if Tyson Fury were to fight Ngannou for the pure. You know I love events and spectacles because I think it's easy work for him and he make a ton of money. How can you knock him?
Okay.
Wait, you disagree with that statement?
I just wish there were more real fights in
between. Yeah, we know. We already said that. Yeah, but I'm saying aside from that, would you not want to watch that?
Yeah, look, I tune in.
That'd be fun.
I just hope you have Mario Tortas at your house. Yes. One last thing. You know,
hey, we got to give a shout out to our Mariscos guy.
Orale.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about that. Because listen, okay, hold on. Here's our new deal. We want to. Okay, Kimster is real Steve Kim. I took him to my boy's spot, Mariscos El Bigoton. Okay? And they have trucks all over LA. Does my guy know how to hook it up with the mariscos, with the cocktails and the campechanas and the tostadas and the ceviche and everything? Kimster, how good is it, bro?
I mean, I felt as though I wanted to live in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, God, this was not Charlie Tuna. And then the birria tacos.
The birria tacos, very good, wow. Very good. No, it's a really great spot. If you guys are in the LA area, I'm telling you, they know how to do it. It's fresh, it's delicious.
And I got a hint. If you order a lot, bring Tupperware because you don't want to throw it away or waste it. You want to bring that home and refrigerate it.
Shout out to Birria Gonzalez, too. They're the ones with the birria tacos. They're right next to each other.
Excellent.
That's the best 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
As far as mariscos go, and that's our go-to spot right now.
Absolutely. And Mario, your mom, it's funny, you always call me Kim Jong-il with my haircut. But your mom came off the top rope with a knockout shot.
My mom, nobody roasts me more than my mom for some reason. She's always, mijo, you know, why do you wear those little socks? They're ridiculous. And why are your pants tight? And you look tired and you look swollen. Were you drinking last night? And she hasn't been liking my wig lately. She says a little too high. Yo, mijo, you look like Kim Jong-un, the guy from North Korea. Dang, Mom.
You're a norteño.
Yeah, I gotta give you the little. Oh no, you have it.
Yeah.
Frazier, you got to put it on. Let Tino put it up.
Yeah. I was like,
Hey, Kim Jong-un, by the way, has got a nice healthy head of hair.
He does. That's a
He's
good
got
job.
a nice healthy head of hair. He could use a little adjusting with the haircut, but
And
my
sideburns. He needs sideburns.
He needs sideburns like Kim. You,
Sideburns.
ironically,
What are those?
coincidentally, have the same
What are
wig.
those?
Is
Yeah.
it
His
strange?
wig is thicker than yours, though, bro. He's got a
I know.
thick head of hair.
Is it strange, by the way, that you just said that Steve Kim is Mexican and your mom just called you Korean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Korean with a tight wig, though.
All right, well, that's it for this week's edition of the 3 Knockdown Rule on Triller. On behalf of Mario Lopez, Smoke and Tim Frazier, Justin Buffalo, Nichols, and Tino on the edits. Goodbye, everybody.